Hey there, my name is Dr. Amy Hager, and I am the owner of the Night Watch Child Care Center, and this is part 2 of a mental health and parents series that we're running. We're trying to do one every month because your mental health matters. Healthy parents, mentally healthy parents, create healthy households and healthy children. So you guys matter. We know that you guys work hard, and a lot of times you are the last person to get taken care of, whether it's dinner, shower, whatever it is, and so you matter. Our special guest today is the sickle cell lady of the area, super mom, and my bestie, Miss Shonda Ward. So welcome, Miss Shonda.
Good morning.
Yes. All right, so I'm going to be kind of giving the perspective of the public school teacher, but then also the child of a super mom. Shonda is going to give her perspective of being an awesome super mom, any other anecdotes she had. I just remember in all the time I've known her, she's always been super involved with extracurricular activities. My goddaughters were playing instruments. They were in Girl Scouts. Like, they were always doing something. And Shonda also was working at least 1 to 2 jobs constantly. And her husband, like, always working, always doing this. And so I really want her to share some insight of how she was able to do it all. And something else really important to note about Shonda is that she's not local. So it's not like she had a grandmom or a mom or somebody drop her kids off. This was a one-stop shop at Shonda's house. So when you registered, you should have gotten a guide of 25 ways to decrease stress by becoming proactive and partnering up with your school. If you follow our blog, thenightwatchchildcare.com, every week we put out a blog, and for September's focus is really on changing the narrative and changing the view about partnering up with the schools. It doesn't have to be combative. It doesn't have to be stressful. And even if you had a really bad experience as a kid, maybe your mom worked a lot and couldn't come to the field trips, or maybe dad was always running late to the recitals, or like whatever, like, and you just had a bad experience, or maybe you just had really crappy teachers and nobody was there to advocate for you because maybe your parents didn't know that was even an option, or you felt uncomfortable sharing it with your parents because you thought that's just how school is. It does not have to be like that for you as a parent, and it does not have to be like that for your kids. So there is a guide of 25. Please check your email. I sent out a new one today. There was a typo or two, so I've sent out an updated one. So we're just going to kind of touch on a couple. So the first one I wanted to talk about, I was going to share my screen. Maybe I should share my screen. What do you think, Miss Shonda? I'm going to share our screen. Share screen. Okay. Here we go. All right. So one thing that you can start doing, and I don't even think a lot of parents even think about doing this, I think more so with the pandemic and all, with the masking and virtual school, there were people showing up to argue with board members, but board members, the board meetings are really important, and a lot of them are online now. Sean, have you attended any board meetings?
Absolutely. Board meetings are very important because you get a chance to spearhead the information from the first source, and you're also available to vote these items that are going to be participating in your county and in your actual school.
Yeah, and especially things with like curriculum, dress codes, scheduling, transportation. If you feel like you need a bus stop in your area, it's the board members. It's not the teacher. It's not even the principal. It's not even the superintendent at times. It's the board that is going to make some of these decisions. There's been a lot of money that comes from the federal government to boost our education system, and they are the ones that are going to have that final say over what it gets spent on. So it's really important that we are at these board meetings so we can follow the tax dollars. I know Mardella Middle High School is getting a significant boost. Long overdue. That school, it's been so long since they've gotten anything, and I know that your girls attended that school 6th grade all the way, and to now finally see, because I know that you were probably very vocal in saying, hey, we need updates. And it's unfortunate that they're now graduated and won't see the fruits of your effort, but I applaud you for doing the things to help out for the parents that are now in there. And so the cool thing about Wacomico County is that they have board meetings during the day and they have board meetings in the evenings. And they get a lot of heat for having evening or daytime board meetings. But as overnight childcare, all my parents work during the evening. So for them to have the opportunity to tune in virtually and attend these meetings is really important. Shonda, do you see that that's helpful, having the two different time frames?
Yes, and definitely when I got a chance to be at the board meetings, I got a chance to fill out a bunch of surveys that were carteled to the needs of my own children, even if my children don't even get the advantages for that, but the children that are like my children who will be able to do that. So I asked for handicap ramps, I asked for bars, I asked for any kind of accommodations that were available for children in wheelchairs or children that were in on walkers, having availability to leave class early so they can, if they are on crutches, because my gosh, how many kids have broken an arm or a leg throughout the year, and they need that availability to leave 5 minutes early so they don't get messed in the crowd.
And I know that sometimes like the regulations and things can be kind of boring, but just because things are ADA, like there's federal laws about that, right? But if you look at some of the regulations, sometimes they put loopholes in there. If this building has been around before 1991, or if this school got their license before 1990, then it kind of like they don't have to do it. So
They
don't.
get grandfathered in.
Exactly, which is not okay. They, you know what I mean? Like, so, but it's not going to change unless you're showing up to the meetings and just becoming, active in it. And like, and knowing, like, I didn't know that until being a childcare owner. And now I'm looking at the regs and I'm looking at some of the things with like bathrooms and accessibility. And I'm seeing these little things of like, if your childcare center is also in a school before 1991, you do not, and I'm like, 1991, that wasn't that long ago. So again, don't assume because there's all these ADA compliance things that it's necessarily going to happen in your school, especially if you have an older building.
Right.
So then we had a couple of things about just like connecting with your school, like email, like do you have the teacher's email? You don't got to bother them, but I'll just give you an example. One year when I was teaching 8th grade, we meet with a parent, and it was like April. And we walk in, and I was the only teacher that the parent knew. That's a problem. They had the same math teacher, social studies, everybody else, and I'm like, why don't you know who this parent is? You got to stay active. Know their website. Follow them on social media. And if they don't have social media, say something. I met with a board member, and she was saying that like there's no like official regulation or like rule or expectation. It's just kind of this unwritten rule. Like if you want to have social media, great, but social media is a great way to find out what's going on in your school's building. And I also like the idea of having, the principal's face. Like I think you need to know who these people are. You might bump into them somewhere and be able to just strike up an organic conversation of how you can get a little bit more involved. And some schools have newsletters. We have a newsletter at the Night Watch. We have a blog that comes out every week. It could just be some free, helpful information. And so we got those updated email addresses. And even like your special teachers, especially if your kid is one that struggles in those academics. Sometimes just as a parent, it might just feel good to hear from the music teacher or the gym teacher. Then your kid's awesome at dodgeball. They might be failing math and reading, but they're fantastic in art. And they need to know about that because in the real world, art, being able to physical endurance, like these all things are important, and they're really just as important as learning how to do like long division. I don't do long division. I don't know about you, Shonda, and I don't plot ordered pairs or any of that. But yeah.
But the reason why it is good to have all these updates is because a lot of people rely on for school closing, they rely on the national news. But if they put their correct phone number and email address in the school system, then they will get a phone call. And so they won't have to wake up as early to check the news because they get a notification on their phones if they get one automatically.
Exactly. And say it's a really bad storm and your power's out, but maybe not everybody else's. Like it might just be your street. You know what I mean? Like the more ways that you can communicate with them, the better. The other person I want to kind of highlight, and Shonda, you working in mental health, I'm sure you know this. So each school is going to have either a guidance counselor or a learning support specialist, or they might just be considered a community outreach person. Sometimes the pupil personnel person falls into that category. They have a bunch of different names, but find out who the person is that knows about community outreach. I was kind of hoping she'd be here today. She may pop in later, but Miss Bacon from Prince Street Elementary. I'm emergency contact for one of our families at the Night Watch, and so I get all of her text messages, and she lets us know about every food giveaway. They're giving away uniform shirts. They're having something at the zoo. Like, she tells us everything that's going on. So getting tuned into that sort of thing, again, it's not always, communicating with the school isn't always a bad thing, that your kid's failing, your kid's getting in trouble. Sometimes it's because they want to give you free groceries, and I'm here for it.
But also, it's good to have that person's contact, because if your kid is having a challenging morning and you touch base with that person and say, hey, FYI, we had a pretty rough morning, someone has passed or something has happened, well, even a dog has passed or whatever that. If you touch base with this guidance counselor, she'll be able to give you additional support and maybe stop by the classroom and pull the person out and kind of touch base with them and see how they're doing, and maybe have lunch with them, something special, so maybe their heart will feel a little better knowing that someone else is in their corner.
I love that. I really like that idea. And I like the idea of mom knowing people in the building, like having that direct connection. Because even at the Night Watch, there are some parents that we've had for 4 years, and there are some new ones, and that I really don't get to build that too much of a rapport with. But there are some that when those kids walk in, they know, like, oh, Miss Amy and my mom, like, they're friends, And so that definitely helps create a positive experience at school. And I love that idea. Like, reach out to them and let them know. Even if it's the teacher, you got to shoot an email, hey, we're having a rough morning. It gives everybody a heads up, because sometimes we don't know what they're walking in with. And just getting that heads up is thank you. And in addition with this, I had some other things about just like making, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Just consider having some academic goals in your home. And it doesn't necessarily need to be worksheets and things like that, but using audiobooks. I know that at one point you were doing a lot of audiobooks. And if you have a library card, you can get free audiobooks, so you don't even have to go into the library to do any of that, and just listening to them in the car, putting closed captions on your TV. Like, there's a lot of ways that you can make reading a priority, getting kids involved with the math and, all that kind of, like, budgeting, grocery shopping, cooking, any of that sort of thing can be a priority, and it's going to, it's an enrichment activity where the kids can apply what they're learning in the classroom into home, because they might not think multiplication, they might just think multiplication is like the drill facts, but the reality of it is multiplication is in cooking, it's in shopping, it's in all of these things. So Shonda, I know that you did a lot of, our girls were in a lot of enrichment activities that weren't necessarily school related. How did you see, with the girls being, doing music and Girl Scouts and things like that, how do you think that helped their school experience?
Well, one thing is we went to the library and we got the app called Hoopla, and it's Hoopla. And so when you get on that, you can link your library card onto it. And when you link your library card, you can actually check out books and read them online. You can actually check out books and go get them from the library. But you also can get, like, your audio, like you said, audio books. But then you also can get music, like the very newest songs that are out right now. You can actually download them and listen to them right then and there. And when you're done with them, they'll take them right back. And so you don't have to keep anything. So now you don't have the room that's cluttered with all these extra things. You can actually have things that go back, and and if they want to check them out again, they can. And so it becomes their responsibility to check them out and send them back and get something else if they want them.
I like that. And in addition to just kind of like the listening and that sort of thing, listening to some parent podcasts can be a great way to just give you some support. Maybe you're not ready for a parent support group. Maybe you're not ready for therapy, and that's okay. Everybody goes at their own space. But taking the commute to work and just listening to a podcast, even if it's 10 minutes at a time, just to pour back into you, because parenting is difficult. These kids do not come with a manual, and God forbid, we talked about last time, medically fragile kids with you, and with mental health and autism, and it's all behavior issues and broken families leading to trauma, and the kids are acting out. There is a zillion things that could go wrong or whatever when you're parenting. So it's cool to take that time. Like that is parental self-care, listening to a podcast or YouTube person and just allowing them to pour into you. And you're going to find out that you are not the only one. Like I wish, like down the road, I'm hoping next year that we can start having some parent groups at the center, because I noticed, I'm like, man, if those two parent moms got together, like I think that they would be fast friends, because they literally are dealing with the same headaches with absentee parents and children with disabilities, and trying to navigate, like, does my kid have autism and I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to do, and should I give him medication, and what do I do when they're tearing my house up and throwing stuff? I mean, but I'm like, there's so many of you all going through the same things. And so coming to the events at the school is a great way to find out. Even at schools, those of you that work in schools, consider having mixers for parents, like something like that, where it's not necessarily kid focused, but parent focused, because I think a lot of parents think that they're the only ones that have these problems, and then they look at it as a failure on them. I know with our girls, not so well. I can't speak to everything, but did you ever feel that you were alone, and then that tying into like, well, I'm such a failure as a parent, but it was really just lack of resources?
Definitely. There's been plenty of times when I felt like, wow, am I the only one that can't see this? And someone else will come by and say, oh no, we did with that last year. And I go, well, how did you get through it with that? And even when you find somebody who's going through it, their situation may not exactly be the same, but having someone who gives you support and saying, I got your back, I understand that, or whatever, or do you need a break? Or is there something else I can do? Or whatever, and really mean it. And those things are so important. And giving myself a chance to say, made a mistake, and going back and saying, oh, let me fix that mistake with my kids and the situations and things like that. Because I don't do it perfect, but I hope that, that having that opportunity to talk to my kids and other parents give me opportunity to say, oh, I could have done that better. Well, maybe next time if this ever comes back up, I can do it that way.
Yeah, and I like the fact that you said something about learning from a mistake. I think just in general, when we make mistakes, like anybody about anything, we want to, like, it's shameful. But I think what you touched on is really important, like, especially with parenting, like, be willing to share some of those mistakes so that somebody else can learn from them. I think that's really helpful. And especially if you can get into like we don't need to be judgy when it comes to parenting. Nobody knows what they're doing.
These kids did not come with a manual.
They
It
did
did
not.
not come with a handbook. And even if they did come with a handbook, it probably wouldn't pertain to your kid.
It's going to be outdated. These kids are like iPhones. Like, they have an update. And it's like, I need whole new directions. Like, what? My kid had an update last night while I was sleeping, and I don't know who this person is. So, yeah. So as we kind of wrap up our conversation, I want to give some just like practical like strategies. So one of the things we had in there was about being proactive about the fact that your kid's going to come in at 8:30 and say, I have a science fair project due tomorrow and I need a backboard, and you're running to Walmart and like trying to buy these things. So what, as a mom my two beautiful goddaughters, what are some things that you would recommend if you were just gonna like quick spend $40 and get like an emergency kit? What are some things that you would want like in your kit?
So in my kit, which we still have at home because my girls are in college and they still need these things. We have crayons, we have markers, we have highlighters, we have folders, we have poster board, and I have all kinds of stencil. So 9 times out of 10, if anything pops off in the middle of the night, we can hurry up and put something together for the next day or so. It may not be perfect, but it will be done. And then we use that as a learning lesson to say, hey, how could we have done this better? But then also when you're connecting with that school, you'll know first. And so you can say to them, hey, I think you have something due next month or at the end of the week. Let's start working on it now. And that helps them prepare for it. But if that last minute thing comes up, you still be able to be ready.
Yep. Having a family calendar may be helpful too. And the kids may like that, because especially when they're younger, kids don't often get say on what the house looks like. they may have some input in their room, but at the end of the day, you're going to do it how you want to do it. And so for kids to have their own little like calendar on the board, like, and you can go find them at the dollar store, like let them pick it out. It can be their responsibility. Get them stickers, like whatever, go to the dollar store, spend $5, get a calendar, some stickers, and that be part of their thing. Like, even if they can't write, even if they're, you know, first, second grade, putting a sticker up, that's going to be a cue to you. Hey, why is there a rainbow on the 15th? Okay, what's going on? You know what I mean? Like, it'll help everybody remember what's going on. But then I also think that kids like being part of the household. So that's going to help them as well. So my mom did not have an emergency kit, but my mother, I used to call her like the MacGyver, right? So when I was in the 10th grade, I should have known better. Like, I had a whole job and a driver's license, and I was like, oh my gosh, Mom, I have to do a model of the ocean floor, and it's due tomorrow. And so my mom, this is what she would do. We didn't have poster board, but she would go and get a gift box that we had with the Christmas stuff, and she would she made an ocean floor out of seasonings. So we had cinnamon and nutmeg and cumin. Like, it stunk so bad because it was everything all kind of mixed together. And she had everything labeled, and then we put the saran wrap on top. And so the next day I'm like carefully walking it in because we had it like all glued down, but I was afraid I was going to shake it and just make a big mess. And I get in and I'm looking around my classroom and nobody else has their ocean floors. It was due the next week. But I told my teacher, I was like, I'm leaving it here. I'm turning it in now. But my mom, she would make Play-Doh out of flour and stuff last minute because I had a Dolly Parton biography that I had to do a thing for. My mom made a Dolly Parton. I mean, my mom. But like, I feel so bad because I'm like, why did I keep doing that to her? But yeah, it's a super parents, super moms. So yeah, having those things, being proactive, having the calendar, being tuned in. As I said, even if you had a terrible experience in elementary school, like I clearly remember a couple of kids, and as an adult now I look back, like I remember they're the ones that came in looking kind of disheveled. They were falling asleep in class. They never had their homework, and I remember the teacher humiliating them regularly, and being 7-8 years old, not realizing I should have said something, told my mom. Like, I remember, like, they would never bring any, their signed papers would never get brought in. You know, if you failed or had a midterm or whatever, you're supposed to get parents signed. They would never bring it in, you know, and for whatever reason, what was going on, that those little kids were not being taken care of properly, but she should have said something. The teacher should have said something instead of trying to berate them. And unfortunately, that happens. I don't want to say more than you think, but more than you think. I think with social media and the kids bringing their phones in and that sort of thing, it's not happening as often because them kids will whip that phone out and get somebody fired. And okay, I'm okay with that. But I remember that, and I thought, like, those kids needed a champion, you know what I mean? And I think about their parents and what their experience was with school. Because if it was as bad as their kids, they probably didn't want to do anything with school either. They sent them to school, so CPS didn't show up. But like I said, dirty clothes, not having homework, falling asleep, you know, hungry. And when I was in school, free and reduced lunch was very, like, that wasn't you could count on one hand how many people in your class had free and reduced lunch. And of course they were free and reduced lunch. It was very sad. And that teacher should have been fired. You know what I mean? But if parents, like, if my mom had known, you know, and my mom was working a full-time job and she would come to parent conferences and things like that, and she was at every field trip. But having those conversations with your kids about what it should look like, if I had, like I said, if I had known, you know, if I had known that was not okay for teachers to be doing that sort of thing with their kids. And then I think about those kids now, because they're my age. We're 40 now, and I wonder what their kids' experience is with school. I wonder if they go to field trips. I wonder if it's either they've checked out altogether or they've turned it into a thing of, my kid is never going to be humiliated like that. I'm going to be in every classroom. I'm going to know that teacher. I'm going on every field trip, every school dance. I'm going to be there. And you really have that opportunity to make it how you want to make it. But I'm telling you, and I will stop and let Shauna talk about her event she's having this weekend, is that if you don't make it a priority, that could happen to your kid. And they're not going to come home and tell you. They're not going to come home and tell you because they think you don't care about school. For whatever reason, whether you guys don't talk about homework, or you don't have the calendar up on the board, or you don't know the teacher's name. And I'm not judging, but this is important. This is important. Your kids are going to be in school for 13 years or possibly longer, and you get to decide what that experience is going to be like for them. If you want to be that mom that brings cookies, then be the mom that brings cookies. If you want to be the mom that works nights so you can go and volunteer in the classroom, do it. Pack their lunches. That was another thing I put on here, and I know, especially in our county, it's free reduced lunch. I know what that free lunch looks like. Pack your kids' lunches. Pack your kids' lunches. Like, energetically packing your kids' lunches, making them breakfast in the morning, setting those daily morning intentions, praying with your kids, whatever it is you want to do. We're going to have a good day, setting that tempo. And then if you got to go back to sleep after you get them on the bus. Packing that lunch, writing a note for them. That's all really important, because there were times where I had really crappy days in elementary school, and I'd open up my Little Mermaid lunchbox, and there'd be a note from mom: "Have a good day, baby girl. XOXO," with a smiley face. And it would be sunshine in my lunchbox. So just those little things can definitely create a positive experience for both of you. So, all right, so I'm gonna go ahead and wrap that up. Shonda is our sickle cell lady in the area, and she's having this big event this weekend. I'm really excited. I think this month is Sickle Cell Awareness Month.
It is.
I'm gonna let Shonda talk a little bit about that, and then we'll wrap it up.
So September, like you said, is Sickle Cell Awareness Month, and so this month we are trying to champion our warriors and our caregivers, and so we are having a blood drive at UMES on the 16th in the morning from 9 to 2, and then we're going to do Third Friday in the evening. So that was coming on out downtown Salisbury, so we can just hang out with all of our caregivers and warriors and other artists. And we have a proclamation from the Wacomico City Council, and we also have another proclamation from the Somerset County City Council, both saying that sickle cell awareness will forever known as Sickle Cell Awareness Month, September. So then on Saturday, we're doing a sickle cell walk. We'll start at 9:30 is the registration. 11 o'clock is the actual walk. And so we have dancers, we have vendors, we have lunch, we have hopefully we'll have a fun time.
Awesome. So how can people connect with you, Shonda, if they want to find out more information, not just about September, but how they can get involved with sickle cell awareness in the area?
So I put the link in the chat. There's our 1 mile down, because we have 1 mile down, but we have many to go. But then also they can feel free to contact me on social media with Facebook or Instagram, and there's the Eastern Shore Sickle Cell Awareness link.
Okay, great. All right, well, thank you guys. Those of you that are attending after our meeting, we're going to be having these once a month because, again, parent mental health matters. And feel free to share this. I know there's some of you guys that are work with schools and community agencies. So the plan is to get more parents involved with all of these, and feel free to share any of these resources. So until next time, thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I don't want to end the meeting. I want to stop recording. Let's try this.